I'm much happier because I'm finding people that resonate. They understand me, where I'm coming from. They may have had my experience already and I can talk to them about it. So there's like also an openness in culture too that doesn't necessarily exist outside of, let's say, Club Hero or other growth groups.
Hey everyone, it's Cate Stillman with the Thrive with Cate podcast, formerly the Yoga Healer podcast, and I'm here with Lynn Beck. Lynn Beck came to a live event in Minnesota, and she'd been in a coaching program with one of my members from Yoga Health Coaching, which is a system I developed, and she'd had a lot of great results, and so she came to the workshop in Minneapolis. That was en route to it was right after my 27th Carleton College reunion. And then you came into Club Hero. And now you have access to the Master of You curriculum, which is based on my second book, Master of You. And so I just kind of want to have you back up and remember before Body Thrive with Leslie, right? Leslie Pereira? Or no, who did you do it with?
Both Amy Heilman and Jennifer Allen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Amy and Jen. Yeah, awesome. Just what was going on and what's going on now, and how has this process, a lot of what we really try to do with people is up-level their lives, like help them up-level their lives and learn the system so that they can continue to do that and they can teach that to other people and they can infuse that in their families and in their offspring. So I'd just love for you to just tell your story.
Sure. Yeah. When I look back in that bigger time range, it's a lot easier to see the improvements and changes, because when I came into the program with Amy, that was in January 2020. We didn't know what was going to happen 2 months later. And so I just remember the call with her, like something along the lines of, I just remember saying, I just need something to be different. And I didn't know what that was. So because I was feeling burnt out with work, I was working longer than my body could handle, and I was traveling a lot. And so going in, resetting my body, learning about the habits, learning how to take care of myself, that really helped get me through COVID.
So go back to like what kind of work you were doing and what led you to that work too. I'd love to hear. I think people would love to know more about, like, who are you?
Yeah. So I'm Lynn Beck. Hi, everyone. So I came into the career world as a chemical engineer. I worked at a couple large companies, started out in research, and then found myself in a product engineering role. And then I found my way into the world of quality. And so in 2016, I was really working with quality systems and learning processes and also auditing. And so that's what took me around the world, was auditing some of our manufacturing facilities, which was very exciting. Also a lot of work when I added on to my regular workload. And so being in the technical community, there's a path that you follow, and it's really, I don't want to say pop culture, but it's really what the society has. And so when I was learning about Body Thrive, it was very interesting to think like, I should take care of myself in the morning. Also during this time, leading up to COVID, I also had a 4-year-old too. So not only was my work life increasing, but my home life was increasing. So trying to balance it all and do it all, because gosh darn it, I'm an engineer, I'm a woman, I can prove everything. So the ironic thing is there is no stereotype. That's the other thing. Like when I try to explain to people that I'm an engineer, it's just, I don't know. It's just an interesting feeling to explain that, and hard to feel relatable to people until recently.
Because it's so male dominated, or why?
It's so male dominated, and I don't know if people know what engineers do.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. My dad was a software engineer, and I remember being, it's like, imagine 1980, right? So let alone 2023. Imagine 1980. I'm like 7 years old at school. What does your dad do? He's a software engineer. What's that? I have no idea. I have no idea. He drives to Cambridge, right near MIT, and he goes into a building and he goes up 10 floors and he hangs out in there all day and then he comes home. Like, that's as much as I could understand that. Okay, so you were,
My career was
what do you
my
say? Like,
identity.
hmm?
My career was my identity. I think
Career's
that would be the
identity and
takeaway.
kind of disconnected from your body because you're kind of living in a man's world, so to speak, in terms of like really not in this like feminine rhythmic flow. And you're burnt out because that's not working for you, and you have a 4-year-old, and so you start Body Thrive with Jen and Amy, and then what happens?
So during that time, I lost over 40 pounds and I didn't even try. And that was pretty incredible. And then
Did you feel overweight? Like, were you just like, this is fine, this is me, this is the new me, this
I
is
felt like
40-year-old me, or whatever? How old
this
were
is
you?
this is what moms feel.
This is what moms feel like. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, old people do it too. They're like, this is what old people feel like. It's like, no, that's dehydration and AMA together.
Yeah, so I would have been 40 at the time. Yeah, seriously,
Yeah,
I'm like,
so you're like, this is what 40 feels like. Okay.
yeah. Thankfully, no, I would say no chronic issues, right? Like generally healthy, not going to the doctor except for regular checkups, you know. So I'm very thankful in that part. So I'm able to feel better. And the way I noticed it is really my pants were getting too big. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then I was like, well, I'm glad I don't have to go into work.
What was the habit that made the pants too big? This is so funny, Lynn, because I remember years ago before like Facebook cracked down with all like the body positive stuff. And I was like, are your pants too snug? I like made this whole campaign around like, have your pants fit better. So what made the pants fit too big?
So it was eating more in line with the seasons. So that's the other interesting thing. I thought we were eating healthy. And but what it came down to is the time of day, and then also, which is, you know, part of the habits. And then also I did cut out alcohol because it's like, well, I don't know, we'll see what happens. And it's not like I drank that much anyway, but that actually had a big impact because it was just less stuff that was not really nutritious for me. So I took that out, and that really sealed the deal for me to be and maintain my weight right now. And so I'm not doing super strenuous, I'm not training for a marathon, but I'm feeling good in my body right now.
So because you have like less calories at night is kind of what I'm hearing. How did that change your mornings?
So my mornings were a lot better. And I also was able to change my mindset because I was realizing I'm not even taking a shower. Like sometimes I thought like, oh, I'm not able to get a shower because I'm a new mom and because I got to take care of the baby. Well, actually there is time. You just need to make more use of the time that you have. And so by me going to bed more diligently, right, when my child was going to bed, I didn't go to bed and then wake back up to get my me time. Because sometimes people, and I did quotes in me time, for that, because I felt then 9 to 10:30 p.m. Oh, that's for me. Well, I just started sleeping through that, and that made such a difference. Because then I was waking up at 5 more naturally, and this would be more in the summertime, right? Is my first year through the Body Thrive process and habits. I was getting out and walking and going around our park, and it was so amazing because then by the time I got home, I felt like I had so much space in my day. That just kicked off a whole another version of my day that I would never have expected.
Yeah, I mean that whole like getting life force energy or prana or whatever, circadian rhythm, daylight plus oxygen, however you want to say it, like getting that like before the day begins, before you put something in your mouth, before you put something in your head, right? It's like then there's momentum, then there's an infusion throughout the day. So then did it just get easier? Was it just like, this is just kind of like life's just getting better, easier, more synchronized?
So when all of those habits click in, life feels so much more at ease. And I call that vacation feeling, because I was thinking about that today. I went out in between some calls and I got some fresh air, which is one thing I noticed I didn't do when I was working on site, because I would be like, oh, I got this meeting, I got to do this. And so being inside, even more disconnected. So now it's taken time, but I'm able to feel permission for myself to, you know what, I got 5 minutes. I'm just going to go out the door and get some fresh air. And it makes a world of difference. And yeah, it felt like vacation for 5 minutes.
Yeah, this whole intermittent movement. When I was first writing the intermittent fasting guide in 2017, it was like intermittent fasting, intermittent movement, like rhythmic fasting, like let's get back in rhythmic outdoor time, rhythmic indoor time. So, okay, then we met and you came into Club Hero, which was the evolution of Master of You, which was the evolution of Awake Living. And it's all about these whole, Master of You was really about 5 elements to up-level your life. And then Club Hero is like, yes, and let's network, right? Let's like really be in a network together and use all these different structures, liberating structures, design thinking structures, various structures that a lot of people learn in different aspects of maybe like work or in, if they're in a growth group, they might encounter some of these structures, but we apply them to multidimensional life goals. So we're saying like career life goals there, financial life goals, investment life goals, personal health life goals, relational life goals, and it just kind of goes on and on. Spiritual life goals. It's like whatever category, same structures, right? Like same structures as tools. Let's get really good at using the structures in a rhythm in the year and see what happens. So what has happened?
Yeah, so I would say there's been a change. So leading up to 2020, career goals. It's all about like, what am I going to do for my career? What am I going to do next? How am I going to make money? And then it's body goals. Like, how can I be healthy? And some people, may have those body goals depending on what their needs are, just as part of their normal life. And so now I would say both of those together now have culminated through this Club Hero experience. And it's like, oh, there's so much more to my life than health and body. It's the relationships, it's the financial part. And it's really awakened me to being more thoughtful. And as you've said in other podcasts, like you're putting yourself in the driver's seat rather than just saying, oh, this is what happens, right? Or this is what you do in your 40s. You can be more purposeful, which I really appreciate, because it's like, wow, there's so much I can do and control. In this world, we can't control, right? But
right. Well, there's that both and, right? Control and surrender, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so when you came into Club Hero, I remember you're like, I want to get a raise at work.
Yeah.
So tap back into that and when that was, and then what happened, and how did that come about?
Yeah. So yeah, when we met in August, that was one of my goals that I wanted to achieve. And it's really to get that next level. And what I found was going through the different structures and being part of the community, I was able to then, I think it was really just being more confident in myself and how I communicate myself. Because I will say that I was quite surprised when I got the phone call to say that I was up for a promotion. And so it was very exciting for me to hear, because I felt like I was finally seen. And, when I look back, it's like, oh, I saw myself. And doing these activities, right? Thinking about what it is that you want to do. What have you done already? That's creating that reflection process that I've never incorporated into my life either.
I think too is like, we see you, like in the Club Hero calls, right? Or in the live sessions, those live, our growth group in there in Club Hero. And it's like, we see you and we didn't see any barrier. And I think that helped you see yourself and to just be like, yeah, this is because everyone in there is like, this is my version of Hero, right? Like, and that was your version. And we're like, yeah, that sounds good. Like, let us know how we can help. And then we all, we kept like as we do in a mastermind group, we masterminded, and then all of a sudden it's like Lynn's like, yeah, I got my raise, got my promotion. And then it's like, okay, what's next, right? And then some people are like, what do you mean what's next? Like, does there have to be a next? Yes, and like it keeps going, right? Like there's this next level, next experience. And then you decided to focus more on investment, right? Like where does this go? And one of my principles around investment is like investments should be dynamic. They should make your life better. I'm not saying not to have any static investments, but that what I have noticed over time is that dynamic investments that are related to your core relationships and your life strategy are the ones that are really the most enjoyable, because they actually make your life better now instead of like waiting for whenever the tax strategy kicks in 20 years out, like after you retire or whatever in 20 years from now. And so I'm just so curious about how your thinking has changed. So like when you go back to before Club Hero, right? And now, because now it's like, it's so normal. What we do is so normal, right? We just did the 2-day up level workshop, and like all this stuff is totally normal in our world. At Club Hero, it's like all normal. But if you go back to before this was normal, what's changed there in your thinking? Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say I'm more inclined to find out what that next strategy is, because I've been able to learn more about myself through like articulating what my strengths are. And then I can see my weaknesses. And with that, it's been and I can see it easier in others. And so it's taken practice of working with others when they say, oh, I'm not good at something. And I say, but you just said whatever it is. And then we're able to marry those two topics up. And I'm using SWOT because this is near and dear to my heart right now, because I want to be more efficient with what it is that I do next, where I'm at, because I had career. Okay, great. I'm at that promotion. I'm enjoying where I'm at right now. I feel like I got to the next gate, and so I can explore around there. So I'm not putting it on pause. I'm just monitoring and making sure that things go well, and I'm gonna keep building my relationships there. And then health, things are good there, just not to decline on that, right? And so now then, from a financial perspective, where do I want to be? And so just by having that analysis and having it written on paper and having gone through it, it's been so much easier, because I never thought about it that way. Before, it was people say, oh, just know your strengths and weaknesses. What do you do? And I took it as an exercise as opposed to an action.
Yeah. So I'm so curious, because you have an engineering background and obviously an aptitude to engineer your life. So how, now that you have like a different, it's like with Master of You with the book, and then with our new up level course, and then the Club Hero and Club Thrive curriculums, right? It's like there's a lot of core competencies, right, that we're often just missing in how the program of modern culture goes. Like, here's the program, and then we're like, yeah, and there's a way better program, right? Like, download this operating system, plug yourself in, rewrite the code if you want. We don't care, right? Like, because that's just going to make it better. And and where does that go now? Because for you, it seems like there's kind of this opening of a lot of different types of opportunity and seeing your future out of the box.
Yeah. And when I look back at the things that I really enjoyed, is creating like a system or a structure, or making things more efficient and easier for people. And so it's funny, is I've done all that work, and now I have that chance to do that with me, because now, I do have that the tools. And the reason, I really chose Club Hero is because it was my next natural step. I really didn't have a group of people that were in the same phase, I guess, for lack of a better word, that we could talk to about it, talk how to grow, what to do next, as opposed to talking about the daily grind, more future thinking.
So it's not like eagle eye vision, right? Or the getting up to 30,000 feet and looking forward with tools, with skills, with competencies, and with structures for dynamic conversations. So like that's the other part, right? Is like we use timers, we use structures to solve problems or to engage opportunities. And so that to me is like, I guess what I'm curious about for you is like, how has that helped your process in terms of like where your mindset's at right now, what your next life design objectives are, how that affects your family, how that affects you as a mom, how that affects you as a team leader at work?
Yeah, and I'm living less reactively, and then I'm able to see what I'm doing, how that has an impact later on, because that's the interesting thing about setting goals is that you actually accomplish them when you're paying attention. and and it just continues that evolution of where I'll go. And so for me, I'm still digging for that, trying to figure out what my deeper dream is, but I'm getting so much closer, because before it was, oh, I have a job, great, I have, a house, the basics. And so now I feel like I can really focus on what it is that I want to do, and I'm getting closer to finding my purpose too. So that's another space where I'm at right now. And that affects my family, and family in the sense that we're not just going and doing things to do them, or we're not reacting because someone said, oh, let's go to this event, I don't know, but
Disney World, right? Time to go
right,
to Disney World. You have a 5-year-old or whatever, right?
right. And we're looking at more of the bigger picture of like, okay, so what does this experience mean? What do we want to do? And that's perfect for my analytical self. And so in a way, it helps me just to kind of live out my skills that I have, right? Like, how does this fit, and what's it mean? Just those details and creating that experience that does feel good. We just went on a trip for spring break, and I feel weird, bragging that it went so smooth. There was no hiccup. And, knowing that I can do that on that small scale, then it's given me that confidence. I can do this on a bigger scale called my life. And it's been coming in hand with work too, because I'm able to play bigger, meaning before I would always say, oh, I'm not good at strategy, but what it was is I was creating a stereotype of what a person who creates strategy looked like and what they did and what that meant. So I guess that was the long answer to saying, I've also had to overcome just believing in stereotypes when really they shouldn't exist. Yeah.
Well, and then naming what your identity evolution is, right? Because that's what I'm hearing in there is like, and Club Hero, I mean, the difference between Club Thrive and Club Hero, I feel like Club Thrive is like a lot of primal habits, a lot of healing. It's the what is if there's predecessor, is there predecessor? What does it mean? The one that follows.
The ancestors? I don't know.
Antecessor? Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's before. It's like the after, whatever it is. What evolved out of Body Thrive was Club Thrive. And and there's like the baby steps and strategy there. And then in Club Hero, there's like, no, like this is game on life strategy, right? And applied to investment design, lifestyle design, and career design, family design, all the things, relational design, spiritual evolution, identity design. And because it's so strategy heavy, right? Because you're an engineer, like you quickly understand the engineering behind the strategy. You're like, oh, this is a system. It has, it has a bunch of tools in it. It has, some applications. It's like, where do I now apply this? So now you're like, oh yeah, I do strategy. I do strategy at work. I do strategy in my life. I do strategy in my investments. I do strategy in my family. So then people will see you as someone who understands strategy, and then that changes your opportunities moving forward.
Yeah, and the thing with that is people have been seeing me in this light for, I would say, the last couple of months. And it's very fascinating because my mind hasn't caught up. I'm still living in the old system. And even with some people in our club, I'll make some comments and they'll be like, what? I didn't catch that with you. I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta work with some things then. Work through that. Yeah.
I just had this idea, and like this to me is sort of how it works, right? Is like we have a dynamic dialogue, and that's the evolution of all the
Mhm.
clubs. Is it's like I was talking to this guy who has a daughter. He's a single dad. He does a lot of engineering and marketing for small business. So he has a real engineering mindset and like is using AI tools and all that. And he's raising this girl who's 14, like all by himself. And he's like, I need a stylist. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to bring a stylist into Club Thrive and Club Hero and Wellness Pro. Like we all need a stylist. Like everyone needs a stylist because when you have an identity evolution, right? Like the outside in, like it's such the easy thing, right? Often when people are like getting a divorce or they change their jobs or whatever, they move, they like get their hair done and they get a new piece to their wardrobe that's really different than they were before, right? To me, it just made so much sense of like, oh yeah, we need to bring in a stylist.
Like, how do I present myself? Like, it was amazing when I was sharing with my coworker about, how does this resonate with you on how I describe myself? Because that's something I've been working on the last couple of months. And he said, I just loved it about how he was able to articulate that I have quality and consistency in my life. And he was able to pull those threads with some of my examples. And I'm like, oh, that's it. Consistency. That's where I live, ironically,
So in wealth dynamics, are you a lord?
I am. Welcome to my manor.
Welcome to your manor. Oh, that's so because I have 0 and Lord, so it's really lovely to meet. It's really lovely to hang out with lords. Yeah. So when you think back to like, okay, you were 40 pounds overweight, you're just like kind of in the grind, in the day to day, in the program, in the box. And now you see that like, oh, I can be whoever I want. I can do whatever I want. Like I can lead my parenting, my family, my financials, however I want. As you think back to that and you think of the investments that you made with Amy and Jen and then that you made in Club Hero, and you think of the return on investment, because this is something we focus on so much in Club Thrive and Club Hero, is like investment, return on investment. What's the value? What's the value of the up level? What's the value of the goal? Because often we are completely irrational, not monetary based. We don't actually like run the numbers, right? We don't run the numbers to figure out the value of the up level. And what we do then in Club Hero and Club Thrive is like, no, we do. Like we do. Even on the way into Club Thrive now, it's like, what's the value of your up level in dollars so that we can invest? Because when we invest in dollars. We also invest in time and energy and attention. And to me, maybe it's all the same thing. But, for a lot of people where their block is they're like, I set these goals and, I believe in them, but they don't invest in them. And so then there's no skin in the game. So when you look back for your return on investment, and you maybe even think back if you had any hesitation or had any, because often people have the old way of investing, and often that doesn't include, actually I have it written down on my wall. The wealthy buy information and coaching, and consumers buy tangible goods. Right. Tangible good could be a trip to Disney World with whatever, the 7-year-old now. Tell us a little bit about your return on investment experience and how that, both past and then how that changes your future.
Yeah. So before, I never invested in myself, except I thought, I shouldn't say that, except for like training classes or certifications, because I'm all about that
for work, engineering.
Right. And taking tests, and I can prove myself and see, look at here I am. And so going into Amy's program at first was my first time of like, oh, what do I do? Is this okay or not? And, thankfully my husband, very supportive. He's like, you know what? Try it, see how it goes. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And
she was your yoga teacher, or
she was my yoga teacher, and I met her when I was doing my prenatal yoga. So I had never done yoga before or paid attention to myself either. So everything happened, I guess, when I got pregnant, I suppose.
Which is super common. Like I taught prenatal, a lot of my friends taught prenatal, and it was like a lot of women come in to be like, okay, now it's time to take care. Now that it's not just me, it's time to take care of me. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's like, why did I not learn how to take care of myself when I was younger? Yeah, so fascinating. But, because of the group and the dynamic group setting and learning from others and me naturally losing that weight without really trying, that showed me that was worthwhile. And then I just wanted more information, like, okay, how can I keep improving? So in a way, that's where I would say my personality type was to just keep learning more and what can I do with it. And I did buy your master review book right away when it came out, but I didn't really read it. I flipped through it. So like that's the power of that group time too, because I had actually calculated, okay, we have however many sessions a month, I'm paying per month, this is how much it is. And I'm like, you know what? This is fine, because it's kind of like, just they say like, oh, it's like buying a cup of coffee, whatever. I don't know, whatever that math is. And so I did the math, and my friend called it eyeglasses math. She's like, you know what? You wear your eyeglasses every day. So if you think about it, it's less than $1 a day. When I'm trying to decide between two pair. She's also an engineer too. But but that's what it came down to, is my interactions with everyone and then me seeing the results. And so then to continue on with Jen, that was easy because I had seen the results and I was getting a different perspective. But I knew I was outgrowing that group. And that's why then doing Club Hero, I'm like, it's okay. I took a deep breath and I said, if this gets me my promotion, that's gonna help me. That's gonna help me achieve my short-term goal, but I know long-term it will get me where I need to be, wherever that's at. And it's been just so invaluable for that. It's really the interactions and where what's all driving this too is, because it kind of ties back to, being stone free, doing liver cleanses. I've only done the one, but my mom had her gallbladder removed, I don't know, sometime in her 40s. I was a kid, I don't remember. But then, towards the end of her life, she had the arterial sclerosis, I can't say the word, hardening of the arteries, some other health issues, arthritis, and just seeing that decline and all the stuff that is an example of inflammation. I feel like the investment that I've done, for sure the last 3 years for myself, but I'm now investing as part of Club Hero, is how to strategically position myself so that way I can live longer. I can live longer pain-free. Thankfully, I don't have pain now. I don't want that day to come. So I like to think that I'm buying time on the end, because how much money do people pay in prescriptions? How much money do people pay going to the doctor? And that's the frustrating thing. I don't need to go to the doctor now, but I need to pay into the system. And so anyway, that's more of a side comment, but that's how I'm finding the return on the investment is I'm so much healthier and I can be smarter because I have a clearer mind. That's one thing that's also changed too. I have a lot more discernment on what's going on. Like there's no fogginess. Again, I thought that was like, oh, this is your 40 and I have a 4-year-old. It's okay to be foggy. No, that's not normal.
I mean, that was, to me, I was, it's this like, does fat equal dumb? And, the research by Dr. Mark Mattson, at NIH, and he's done more research on intermittent fasting than any other scientist. And it's decrease in cognitive function, right? Increase of adipose tissue equals decrease in cognitive function. And it's like, we're not supposed to talk about it. We're supposed to be, I don't get why. It's like, we're so PC, and yet scientism is alive and well. People are like, well, where's the science? It's like, well, the science is all there. And that's why in Uninflamed, I have like the chart of like, this is what the decrease in cognitive function, this is what it looks like. And this is what the opposite looks like. And it's not a function of age. It has nothing to do with age. Yeah, that's so interesting that's where the ROI conversation went. Because when you really think about that, and so now you're what? You're 43? 40, You're 43.
44 coming up, but yeah.
Going 43. To 44, totally different than 40, right? Like totally different opportunities. totally different mindset, totally different skill set, totally different people set. Right now, you're in this growth group at Club Thrive. You're in Primal Habits with all the stuff we're doing in Club Hero, and then all the Primal Habits in Club Thrive, and you're out of your box, and now it's all open, right? It's like, okay, the playing field is open for you to design your life with peak cognitive function.
Yeah. And intention. Like, that's for me just mind blowing. Like, I'm not a victim of my experiences. Like, if I want to set a goal, I have that support to do it. And it's been really good in that way. And so for me, where I'm going, I don't know. It's like the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what I look forward to so much, Lynn, is like where we're all going together in Club Hero, because what I'm sensing now in this, this will go into the woo-woo category, but it's like there's traction happening. And I think it has a lot to do with just all the massive changes with AI. It has a lot to do with the urgency of our planet and mass extinction that's happening, mass decrease in cognitive function of humans around the globe, like loss of microbial diversity, like all the stats, right? Like all the numbers, there's this like increase in traction. So to me, it's like the people sets right now are gaining more in growth groups, are gaining way more traction in their networking, and they're forming new business ventures. They're forming new lifestyle design ventures. They're forming new ways of like relational, spiritual, exploratory identity evolution. But like, there's so much cool stuff happening at this higher, at the up-leveled version of traction, right? That I'm just like, where are we all going together in Club Hero? And how much will that matter 5 years from now? Right, who we're networking with right now and there, how we're trading skills and tools and accountability partnerships and all the things, and having you as a lord, having me as like a creator star type, like these different wealth dynamics where it's like being with people that are really opposite, really have different parts of the picture, to me is just so part of the return on investment, right? It's like we invest to be in growth groups with high intentionality that are 100% like vibe aligned, like this is the vibe I like, I want more of this, right? And then it's like, where will it go? I am so curious.
Well, and just that whole like finding like. So now I'm much happier because I'm finding people that resonate, they understand me, where I'm coming from. They may have had my experience already and I can talk to them about it. So there's like also an openness in culture too that doesn't necessarily exist outside of, let's say, Club Hero or other growth groups. And then that openness too leads to that natural collaboration of like, well, what can we do, right? As opposed to thinking of it as competition.
Yeah, totally. So
Less
what would
judgment.
any advice you have for like, just imagine you're back to your 40-year-old self.
Yeah.
You got a good job. You've got it all. You've got the American dream. You got the kid, you got the house, you got the job, right? But you're 40 pounds overweight. You're kind of burnt out. You don't really have a life strategy that is, out of the box. It's the one that, it's the spoon-fed one. What advice do you have to that person with investing in Club Hero or Club Thrive?
Can you restate that one more time? Sorry.
Yeah. Just so
I
like
had an
the old you,
airplane
like
go.
what advice would you
Oh,
have for that person in terms of investing in Club Thrive or
yeah.
Club Hero?
Yeah. So I would say when you invest in yourself, you can't go wrong because you have to live with yourself and your decisions. And so the question is, can you continue living the way you are? And if you don't try, then really what is there to lose? Because if you happen to know everything and all the strategies, okay, great. Then you've been able to narrow down the issues or what's not going right. And so it leads to a happiness factor. So I can say that I am much happier than I was 3 years ago. And it's easier to feel more calm in myself because also there's less whirlwind. So investing in Club Thrive is a great start because then you get a taste for what is it to feel like you have a sense of who you are. Because I know I didn't necessarily have that because my identity was all merged in with, being a mom, being a worker, some of it myself. And so now I'm able to stand out a little more and know who I am. rather than just kind of blend in. And yeah, and the thing with the money is, I would work it out. Like if it's really a concern, there's ways to make it happen, because that's the other weird thing too, is money is weird, and like it finds its way to you in whatever form it is. And there's other opportunities, meaning like deciding, if I were to choose to, it's all about priorities too, I guess. How big do you really want it? So let's say I vacationed and did mini trips, right? Each mini trip costs so much money, but let's say I cut that back. I do have the money. It's just I'm not choosing to invest it and grow. And if you choose at least 1 year to grow, then it would lead you, to places unknown. And so it's more of like, this is a point in time as opposed to forever, right? Like we have these growth periods in our life, and right now I'm at a big part of growing. And yeah, so how important is it to change? So for me, when I was 40, I needed something to change. I didn't know exactly what it was. And then as I learned more about myself, then I realized being around the like-minded people was my way to getting what it was I wanted out of life. Yeah. And the like-minded community, we all are there for a similar reason, meaning like we want to be there for ourselves. So we're showing up for ourselves. It's not to say that my local friends or my friends that I've been friends with don't believe the same thing, but there's an intention by us showing up at the same time together to make it happen. Yeah, that structure.
The intention, like the structure, the system, the follow through, the accountability, the tools. Yeah. And that's the differentiator, right? It's like Jung said, a belief is to act it out. Like we actually act it out in Club Thrive and Club Hero. Like it's a no whiners club.
There's a transparency too, because I could set goals, and I had goals before for home, like, oh, I want this to happen, but it would never come up because no one else is asking me on it, because everyone that's, around me, they're like, yeah, life is happening. But it's not to say that life doesn't happen in general, but there's that accountability piece that's really big, and it makes you think, is this important, whatever it is, or is something else more important and bigger that will take me where I need to go?
Yeah.
That short-term thinking versus the long-term.
Yeah.
Big difference.
What I'm hearing too is like the ROI, the return on investment, has so much to do with the opportunities that you've realized from the process that you've worked yourself through. It's like, there's been these like, I lost 40 pounds. I got a promotion. I have, and then it's like, wow, wait, my opportunities are totally different from my prior investment. And like, what if you keep, playing that note on the keyboard, right? It's like, wow, huh? Then to me, it just gets more and more dynamic.
And that's the key. It's all about the process. It is about the result, but you learn along the way, and you can refine it, and you can redefine it, and you can keep changing. So it's not like it's a product, so to speak, right? Like, oh, I need to eat, I don't know, do something, I don't know, something that's very prescriptive that you have to do. And this is more intuitive, and this is also following that path of, what do I need to do? What's that next step? And keep evolving.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what I always say is like, I design iterative processes, right? That like go into the unlimited. And so to me, it's like, if someone downloads the process, it's like, then your kid's downloading it through your parenting, your spouse is downloading, your team members are getting the contact high. And then why we actually stay in Club Hero, to me, is all about the mastermind and the network and people going black belt in the process, and then where that goes relationally and collaboratively. So thank you. Thanks for playing the game over in Club Hero. And I'm so psyched. So glad that you're in there. So glad we have a Lord engineer in the form of Lynn Beck. I'm so excited to see if we were to do this a year from now, what'll have evolved. And just, congratulations on you taking action on you.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying the process and the journey.